So Karen, I've got a question for you, because you gave us a little teaser in your introduction. Why did you choose to work in higher education then, and what differences do you see in gender equality in the higher education sector compared to the previous sectors that you've worked in?
It's a really interesting question. Thank you for that, Aya. It wasn't a choice per se. So as I said, my early career was in finance and banking, and I was very fortunate to apply and get a role on one of their management training programs. So it set out over a number of years the type of duties you would be doing, when you were expected to change roles, etc. And what became really obvious to me from day one is that despite doing well in my role, alongside, I guess, my male colleagues, I was held back. And I didn't have the confidence very early in my career to speak out. And there were a couple of reasons why. I think there was this notion that I should be thankful that I managed to secure a management training role with one of the large retail banks. And back then, you know, it was considered a great role. It was considered a job for life. And the fact that I was so thankful and grateful, I didn't have the confidence to speak out and say, why am I being treated somewhat differently from my peers? You know, I'm passing my banking exams, my professional exams. I'm doing just as good as other colleagues. I do remember on one occasion, I managed to pluck up courage and challenge why I hadn't been moved on. And what I was told is, well, you're good at your job and you're reliable. So that was the reason why I was being held back. Fast forward, I think a couple of years, and I realized that, you know, this just was not fair and I wasn't very happy. So I left what was considered to be a job for life against the wishes of my family, who were absolutely appalled. I mean, how could you? Why would anybody choose to do that? And I went and started to work for an American outsource company. And lucky for me, when I joined, my line manager was a female who was absolutely fantastic in terms of that personal development and growth. So I was fortunate to do numerous roles and be promoted on numerous occasions very, very quickly. I then left and went to work for another competitor within the outsource industry. And I immediately found that I was the sole female working amongst a very male-dominated senior leadership team. In fact, I was the only female, and I was the only Black female working alongside these men. It was very aggressive, and at the time the culture was, if you sent an email as late as 11:30 at night or 11:45, you know, you got kudos for that. There was no flexibility or recognition that as a mother, because I'd recently just had my first child, that I needed that flexibility. There was absolutely nothing available at all. This began to really grate on me, and I became really, really unhappy. And I remember speaking to a colleague that I'd worked with some years back, and we were on the phone for possibly for about 2 hours, and I was obviously having a right old whinge about being dissatisfied, and you know, the fact that I'm a young mother, there's no flexibility, they expect me to work all hours and still go home and do my other work as well. Now, a lot of my family members and friends that I'd grown up with had gone into education, either primary or secondary education. And at that time, I'd made a decision that I was going to become a teacher, because why wouldn't I? In my mind, they were very, very flexible. Back then, I thought you had all the luxury of the school holidays, and I only saw it at that time as a job that was possibly 8:30 to 3:30, and then you get all this personal time to yourself. And I remember coming off the phone to my colleague, and she encouraged me to update my CV and just to put it out there. And I was like, oh, it's going to be a complete waste of time. And she said, just put it out there, you'll never know. As far as I was concerned, I was going to become a primary school teacher or secondary teacher. Anyway, I took heed of what she said, came off this conversation, updated my CV and just put it out there, you know, sent it to a few recruitment agencies. And I kid you not, no word of a lie, the very next morning, I got a call from a headhunter that said, we've got just the role for you that calls upon your skills. I said, well, in teaching, are you sure about that? Because as far as I was concerned, I was going to become a teacher. And I remember this gentleman pleading with me just to say, please, can I have your permission to send off your CV? I think you'll be fantastic. And I think it's just what you need. And all he said to me, it's in education, but he didn't expand on anything else. So once I'd agreed, he then came back and said, they really like the look of your CV and they'd like to invite you in for an interview. And that's how I ended up working for the OU. And I've never looked back. So that's how I ended up in higher education. And just thinking about the question you asked, Aya, about how does gender equality compare in this sector compared to other roles I had? I mean, there's just there's no comparison. Just based on what I've shared with you, I find working within higher education a lot more flexible, a lot more understanding, and I no longer find that I'm in a position where, as a leader, I'm amongst, or that it's mainly dominated by men. So yeah, no comparison in terms of my past and previous career.